Hi, and thank you for joining me for day 12 of Scraptember 2023. This is a month-long hop organised by the Scrappy sisters and Laura Alberts, and it's wonderful. They provide us with prompts every day. There are 3 sketches throughout the month, and it's really got my creative juices flowing. So today's prompt is to use enamel dots, Nuvo or sequins, or and as well, if you like. So I've grabbed my print shop. I'm still trying to use this collection up, and I absolutely adore it, so it's not a chore really. And I'm scrapping 2 photos of my children from back in 2011 when they were making sock monkeys. Well, I say they were making them, they were only 4, so I was making them and they were help stuffing them and things, but they were ever so good. This was their first half-term break, so their first holiday from school since they started in the September. So I was trying to keep them occupied through that week-long break, and this was one of the activities that we did. So you can see I'm just building up some layers on the left-hand side of the page. I've decided to do a vertical layout again. It's definitely my favourite one to do. So I'm just cutting strips from the scraps that I've got from this paper collection, and both of the photos started out as 4x6, but I have trimmed the one on the right hand side down to a square. It's just under 4x4, and then the larger one you'll see when I add that to some white card, I do actually trim that down a little bit as well, or I may have already done that at this point. No, it doesn't look like I have, so I will trim that down a little bit as well. That strip of dotty paper that I'm adding to the right hand side there is actually one of the branding strips. I wanted to bring that paper onto the right hand side because I've used it on the left as well. I like to mirror things where I can, so if I use something in one element of my layout, I'll try and use it somewhere else as well. Now, because the brief is to use sequins or enamel dots or Nuvo, I decided to go with a circular theme. So these 2 pieces that I'm adding now are cut out from one of the pattern papers. I just had enough to cut 2 sort of almost complete rings from it. So I'm using them on the left-hand side, and I'll also be using a circle on the right-hand side, which is the inside piece of that bottom circle that you can see there. And it works really nicely on that right hand cluster. I've also cut that Good Idea circle out from the vellum, the speciality paper from this collection. I just thought that that would work really nicely. It's a lovely gold, and I wanted to bring that gold in a little bit more because it's a main part of that left hand cluster there. So I'm just taking each of the papers off and distressing the edges, and then trying to remember how I put them, and of course I can't. So I do a little bit of faffing here, trying to work out how they're going to be layered. I think the problem that I had was that the blue and the pink stripe were almost exactly the same length, and I couldn't remember what I'd done, but in fact I had staggered them. I do get there in the end, but it just takes me a little while to work out exactly what I'm doing. Honestly, my memory is awful, and that's why you'll see me peeling pieces of paper up to add the glue behind without moving them, so that I don't have to move them and then forget where they are. So using my Sticks 2 tape runner to stick everything down, I am going to bring my T-square ruler in here just to check that it's straight, because it's a very vertical layout, this one. I didn't really want things to be offset, I did want them to be straight. So just moving the paper around to get the tape underneath each of the strips, and bringing my T-square back in just to check that they are straight there. So you can see I've offset those 2 against one another, and it looks much better, but I just couldn't work out what I'd done. It's ridiculous, isn't it? You'd think I hadn't scrapped before, and I'm doing this every day. Anyway, just adding a bit more tape to reinforce where I've stuck those bits down. It does take a little while because of the way that I've done it. It would have been much easier to just take the pieces off and add tape properly to the back, but there you go. So I think this is the final part now that I'm just sticking down. And I think it's at this point I decide that I want to map the photo onto some white cardstock. So yes, here we go. And that cardstock, once again, is just a tiny bit too small. There was plenty of blank space on this photo to trim it down, so I chose to do that today so that I could make use of that scrap. So just sticking that down now to the white card. And I don't distress the edges on this white card. I just leave it whole, so to speak, without any distressed edges. Sometimes that makes it pop off the page a little bit more rather than distressing it. Everything else on the page is distressed, so keeping that nice and clean and simple gives it more of a focal point. So now I'm going to work on the mat on the right hand side, so bringing in the scraps of those papers that I'd used on the left to create a similar layer, but using different pieces, if that makes sense. So rather than having a big block of the dotty paper, The biggest block will be the navy blue. I'm just making use of what I've got. And I don't bring the green in because it's a much smaller mat. And I think I pretty much used up all the green anyway. So I wouldn't have had much of an opportunity to do that. Unless there's some still in there. I have still got some papers in the 6x8 pack and in the 12x12 pack. But I didn't go through those. I've just used my scraps today. So again, matting this photo onto white cardstock to get that lovely border. Just once again mirroring what I've done on the left-hand side. And making sure that the edges are more or less equal. I don't measure things, I just do it by eye. Life's too short. And now I'm punching a 2-inch circle to add behind that vellum, just to make the words really show, because I'm going to be gluing it onto the yellow paper. It wouldn't have shown that well, so adding this white behind really does make it pop. And a 2-inch circle is perfect for these pieces on that vellum paper. So again, messing around, deciding where everything's going to go. I decide that I should probably glue this cluster down on the right hand side. So just getting those papers situated and trying not to move them too much. Just having to shimmy that one along a bit because I didn't want it to hide the right hand edge of that blue paper. I like the layers all to be offset against one another. And then gluing this circle into place. That was the circle I was talking about that came from the inside of the circle rings that I've got on the left-hand side. So once all this is glued down, I can go ahead and stick it down to the layout. But first of all, I want to make sure that the right-hand side is complete so that I can see exactly where it's going to go. So just faffing about with those circles again, trying to work exactly where they're going to go. And then messing about with that left-hand piece. And I'm happy with the main photo being there so it can all start to be glued down. And once again you can see I'm just peeling things up and adding the glue behind them so that I'm not moving them from the positions that I was finally happy with. So finally that vellum piece will be added, and then that's that cluster more or less sorted, and then I can start embellishing. I don't do a huge amount of embellishing today. It's a very busy page and I want to get those sequins on. So here you can see this is a new trick that I've found all by myself. I've added the glue to the right hand side of that cluster onto the white cardstock where it was going to be put back on, so that then I could lift it, add the glue all the way around, and then position it back on top of that strip of glue that I put on the right hand side. So I'm going to work on my title now. I don't have many of these letters left from this lovely alphabet set that came with Print Shop. Not enough to do the full titles, because my full title is going to say let's make a sock monkey. But I did have the letters to do A and monkey. I didn't have an O, but I had a Q, and I cut the tail off and it was close enough. You don't, unless you're looking very closely, you don't notice. So I was more than happy with that. So I'm bringing in my Bella Boulevard Florence alphabets to create the rest of the title. I use black next to A, and then I'm going to use this navy blue to write let's make. And I'm going from the end of the last word backwards, just so that it finishes where I want it to finish. So that fits in really nicely there. There's a lot of blank space to the left and above it, so I will deal with that. Now digging into the 6x12 sticker sheet to see what I can add. First I add these word phrases up here, but decide that they're better moved down next to that ring. So they just say dream, plan, do. And I thought that worked nicely with what we were doing. And then what else do I add? Oh, this one says just right. That I add to that photo, and then look here to the other photo. I love these word strips that you get in the Vicky Booting collections. They're all just so usable on most layouts, aren't they? So that sticker at the bottom says happy day, and I thought that was really nice to go with the good idea. And now I'm just pulling off some of the gold dots. I think I'd semi-forgotten that I was going to be adding sequins here. So just pulling off some of the gold dots that are on the sticker sheet. There are some with hearts and stars on, and some just plain gold dots. So just dotting those around the page where I probably would have put the sequins. Anyway, they're on there now and they do look really nice. I like how it finishes. So I'm still concerned about that space next to the let's make a sock. So I pull out these puffy stickers because I think a gold arrow might work nicely, and this one just fits. It's almost like the space was made for it. So I add that, and then I pull off some more of the puffy stickers. There's a little heart that I had down the bottom there, And then I find a phrase that says, let the fun begin. So I layer that underneath that happy day sticker at the bottom. And it just all works really nicely together. Vicky's very good at designing collections, I must say. So here are my sequins. I pulled out some gold and some black from my collection. And I'm just going to add those in small clusters around the page. So generally in groups of 3s, some gold, some black. And it just fills in those gaps nicely. I won't make you watch me glue them all down. It takes me long enough to position them. Honestly, I'm all fingers and thumbs at the moment. So these really add a lovely sparkle, and like I say, just fill in those gaps very nicely around the page. Now, I still haven't done my journaling, and at one point I was thinking I was going to add it towards the bottom underneath the 2 rings, and right next to that let the fun begin sticker at the bottom. But then I see that circle inside the ring and decide that that would be a perfect place to add my journaling. So it just says, creating our own fun in October half term, making sock monkeys. You were both so patient stuffing their bodies. So now I felt that it was very blank at the top here, so I just wanted to create another tiny cluster. So that's a little sticker from the 6x12 sticker sheet. That Moments Captured is from our printables at Hey Little Magpie, and then that's one of the little faux suede faces, smiley faces that we've got. I've got the sequins stuck on, and now I'm coming in with some black Nuvo just to finish off. So please do check the description box down below to see everybody else who's joining in on Scraptember. There's a playlist, and it's wonderful because you can just hit play and see everybody's creations. I absolutely love it. I'm still working my way through the videos. I think I'll have enough to watch for the next year at this rate because they're being added to every day. Thank you again for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed this, and I shall see you tomorrow for day 13. Thanks again. Bye.